E non soltanto agli uomini, ma anche
agli animali, alle figlie,
così che possono fare di più.
quello che
in quanto saranno permesso dal Signore. non soltanto agli uomini, ma anche agli animali, alle fiere. Signore!
We are here with more. Welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for being patient with my technical difficulties. Please let me know if you're hearing me okay. I hope you are. And welcome in. That was Wilson Bridge area. Wilson Bridge. Let's see. Do we not have audio? Hmm. Hmm. Testing. Okay, thank you. There was some glitch. So that was the Wilson Bridge area. And I want to thank you for indulging me there. And also, I was saying that I promised you more, and more is here. So, uh, more is happening. Okay. Um, we have a lot to get into, and so I'll get started very soon. I want to say hello to everyone who is here. Apologize for the technical difficulties and all of that. Um, and let me just say that in order to expedite today's show, I will um, I will say hello to you now as a group, and maybe at the end I will call everyone. So we want to thank you and say God bless to you, and thanks for being here. Again, I'm trying to help this expedite alone because there's a lot to cover tonight. So forgive me for not saying hello to all of you, each of you individually as usual, but we'll be back to that soon. Um, as Amy says, please hit the like. And if you feel so compelled, please support the channel with our various support pathways. And please add as much as you can to the chat. Um, it's very important that you assist in our disclosure of information and exploration of information here in the chat. So we have a bunch of resources for you tonight, and there are some oddities with the technical difficulties. This has been crashing on me all day. It's very odd. It's been crashing, so every time I pull something up, it crashes. But we have a lot to cover, so we'll try to handle it. And so, anyway, um, As people come into the chat, please greet them and enjoy the chat while we get started. Um, Anyhow, I thought that it would be great to establish a context for you with the introductory video showing you the area around Wilson Bridge, an area that's top of my list for high suspicion. And we'll be talking about that later. But God bless all of you and thanks for being here. And happy Thursday, October 17th. And we know that tomorrow is the beginning of the trial for Richard Allen in the Delphi murders, opening statements, and it is my conspiracy theory and my hypothesis that you will be having your mind blown in the next several weeks. In the course of this case, I believe that there's many details that will come out that have been rumored about, but you may have not believed over the years. So that's all we want is disclosure. We want to celebrate the truth coming to the surface in the Delphi murders and justice for the girls coming. So that being said, let's get into our episode timelines in the Delphi murders fictional narrative scenario, part 1, Phantomime. Okay, so just a moment. Okay, tried to turn up a little for you guys. Many of you have seen this before. Kelsey says, I contacted the Anthony underscore shots account at the police station the night of the 13th. I had Libby's social media password so I could see who she was communicating with that night. Interesting. Looks like what we have is a first statement of truth, followed up with some gaslight. I didn't message the account using her socials on her phone. I had a short conversation with the account that gave no indication that the account knew where the girls were, so I stopped communicating with it and didn't think of the conversation again until recently. I wish. Okay. Megan made several calls to her brother Blake, starting around 1:22 p.m. and continuing until 2:48 on February 13th, 2:48 a.m. She told Tina these calls were made from the bridge. I think she was trying to get out of there. These calls would have been made during the abduction sequence. Megan returned to Tina's house on February 15th. She had been beaten and sexually assaulted to a degree that she could barely walk. She told Tina that she wanted to see what it was like to stab someone. You may have noticed in the videos from Eye of Apophis, which I played yesterday, in other words, a collection of early news coverage, uh, several instances where the coverage stated a family member dropped off the girls and a family member she returned to pick up the girls, and they were not there. And here we have ISP Officer Burston at one point stating that one of the parents dropped off Abby and Libby. Well, the question is, Was that a slip of the tongue? Was it a mistake? Or was it factual information at the time? Now that's going to be our preface, and now we're getting into the actual timeline. Now, keep in mind that I described a fictional narrative scenario. You may recall that last night on our prelude to the timelines, I stated that it's my opinion that it's at 2 a.m. or so on the 13th when I believe the lies started. Meaning, I don't believe the Musicali videos happened in real time and were posted in real time. There's evidence for that. I don't believe the morning of the 13th happened the way that it was stated, and we covered that. I don't believe the late morning of the 13th happened the way it was stated, and I stated that. And I don't believe the noontime happened the way it was stated, and I stated that. And naturally, what you're looking at here, I don't believe to be actuality. I believe this is a part of the pantomime, or what I call the phantomime. This is part of the LARPing, the real life playing out of a theatrical scenario, in my opinion. I believe that everything that happened after the 12th of February 2017 was a real life theater production taking place in the city of Delphi, Indiana, on the trails of the Monon High Bridge, all around the area, and we'll be getting into that. Remember that I alleged that because the Ron Logan PCA states approximately 1 p.m. the victims arrived at the area near Ron Logan's property. It is my opinion that we really cannot even establish a beginning point to the timeline. Since we're discussing a fictional timeline scenario anyway, I guess it really doesn't matter. But we could start by saying, hey, guess what? Let's just say we'll put the first pin at 1 p.m. And we'll say anywhere between 1 p.m. and 1:49 p.m. Roughly anywhere between 1 and 2, anywhere in the 1 o'clock hour is the alleged point of the drop-off of these two girls. And it is my hypothesis that it never happened. In no way could it happen if the girls were not in a condition to be dropped off, if they were not capable of walking, talking. Perhaps that's why it appears that no one witnessed them out there that day, because for someone to witness them, they would have had to been there at the time and place. And since it's my hypothesis that it's all a fictional narrative scenario, they can't be there. So with that in mind, we start this script. This fictional narrative scenario is no different than a script. A script for a stage production, complete with stage directions, costumes, cast of characters, So let's get into it. As you know, you can never really nail down a time in this script. It's always a rough approximation of an approximate time. At this point, being 1:40 in this document, but we know, as I said, it could be 1 p.m., it could be 1:35, could be 1:38, could be 1:49. Somewhere in the 1 o'clock hour, our script begins with Kelsey dropped them off at Mears. Remember, as I said yesterday, that each detail in this script is intentional. It's somewhat unnecessary, but also potentially included as points in order to future explain particular anomalies that will arise once the bodies of these two young girls are discovered. Beginning with Kelsey giving each girl a sweatshirt she had in her car to take with them. Remember earlier, we read that Becky insisted that Libby take a jacket because it was cold, and Libby says no. But then it's alleged that Abby took a gray sweater that belonged to Kelsey. Odd. Didn't she own one? Kelsey watched the girls walk up the trail, allegedly. She said she saw 10 to 20 kids her age there when she dropped them off. However, later, she states she saw none. She also stated she saw a black SUV with stickers. She also stated she saw a bunch of vehicles, a bunch of kids. Things always change, don't they? Becky said there was one vehicle there when Kelsey dropped them off, 1:40 to 2 p.m. Allegedly, Libby and Abby walked the trails to the bridge, arriving at the north end. There's a mysteriously suspicious photograph of an empty bridge posted to Snapchat that identically matches other photos taken by Cheyenne, and who can explain it? Approximately 2:07, there is a picture posted to Snapchat of Abby walking on the bridge. However, we now know that photo is not on the victim's phone. So this phrasing of this particular statement, timed at 2:07, is not accurate. Libby didn't post the picture. 2:07 is not accurate because there are no accurate timestamps on Snapchat. It's a rough approximation. We'll be getting into that in a future episode when we discuss these digital artifacts. A visual recording of BG walking towards the south side was captured on Libby's phone while facing north, allegedly. A recording of a man saying down the hill was captured on Libby's phone, allegedly. Girl talk, there's a mention of a creepy man behind them, allegedly. The length of the video audio has not been disclosed, but is assumed to be approximately 43 seconds. Libby's phone was found in the area near the location where the girls were found, actually under Abby, under issue. Cheyenne's friend from school arrived in a white car with paper plates. Would that be Gabe Ellis and company? No later than 2:45, as their vehicle was already there when Cheyenne arrived. The vehicle was also witnessed parked there at 3 o'clock per Michelle Wise. A couple was witnessed by a man in a flannel shirt at the bridge before seeing Derek at 3:30 on the trails. They also were said to have witnessed BG leaving at 3:15 via Freedom Bridge Trail. And do you know who that is? Daniel Pearson. And you know who? 2:30. Cheyenne's best friend hiking buddy arrived. Cheyenne didn't know she would be there. Are we talking about Shelby Duncan? She saw 3 vehicles when she arrived. One white car with paper plates. That sounds like Gabe Ellis and company. Belonging to a friend and his girlfriend. Neither of the 2 unknown vehicles belonged to her hiking buddy. 2 to 3 unknown vehicles, huh? Those 2 unknown vehicles were not there at 3 o'clock when Michelle Wise drove by. She only saw 2 vehicles. Tyler Joe French? One of those unknown vehicles could have been the vehicle Kelsey saw when dropping off the girls at, yeah, what time was it? And were the girls there or not? 2:50, Cheyenne happens to run into her best friend and hiking friend, in which she didn't know would be there. They walked to the main trail to the bridge, crossed the bridge to the south side, taking pictures along the way. Cheyenne stated that she saw a heterosexual couple she was also friends with. Cheyenne said they had arrived before her. She arrived at 2:50 and says she did not know they were going to be there. I'm going to blaze through a bunch of this and we're going to stop for commentary. 3 o'clock, Michelle Wise saw a white vehicle with paper plates parked on the side of the road and a dark colored vehicle parked at the gate. Hmm. Is this Megan Allen and all her friends? And who's in the dark colored vehicle? Is it the SUV with the paper bumper stickers on the back window, or whatever you want to call them? White car with paper plates on the side of the road. Dark colored vehicle by the entrance. How did hiking buddy arrive? Dark colored parked next to the entrance belongs to Cheyenne. White car with paper plates on the side of the road belongs to Cheyenne friend from school, also hiking. Why does it get so fucking convoluted at this point? 3:11, Derek came up 75 across country roads and across Wilson Bridge calling Libby's phone. He said he was coming down the road. Here is another oddity in the timeline. Why does Derek choose to come up these country roads? I've been there, drove the roads. You wouldn't choose to take those roads. They're gravel roads. Why did Becky attempt to explain Derek's cell phone pinging at Wilson Bridge at 3:11. You see, you will learn that it's my very strongly held conviction that everything that took place in the first stages of this incident took place at Wilson Bridge. How odd is it that at 3:11, at the very start of this incident, we are placing Derek at Wilson Bridge, possibly excusing his presence at Wilson Bridge? Was he at Wilson Bridge for some other reason? Made a phone call that we suddenly have to explain? I think so. 3:13, he arrives at Mears parking area. He called several times to try to reach them. 3:20, he calls Becky and Tara to ask them to try to call. 3:25, he alleges he starts to walk. 3:30, he sees a man wearing a flannel shirt, allegedly. In this hypothetical fictional narrative scenario, it is assumed that flannel shirt guy arrives after 3 because Michelle only saw 2 vehicles. And at the latest, by 3:10, to have arrived before Derek at 3:15 and have time to walk to the bridge and back to a spot where he meets Derek at 3:30. Derek allegedly asks if he saw the girls. The man said no, but he did see a couple down by the bridge. And we believe that to be Daniel Pearson and his female friend. Sorry for the notifications, forgot to turn them off. Okay. Now, what you're going to learn real quick here is that there's some shenanigans that begin. It's very odd. It's very odd because suddenly at 3 p.m., a whole bunch of shenanigans begin. And it downward spirals from there. You may see on this timeline here that early on in the 1 o'clock hour, there's a bunch of girls, Bree and Rayleigh Voorhees, some of the early witnesses, allegedly. These witnesses are taking photos around. Around this 1:27 to 1:49 time frame, there's multiple vehicles that pass the Harvest Store cameras. Multiple vehicles, a flurry of activity in vehicles near the Harvest Store in the 1 o'clock hour. In the 2 o'clock hour, nothing. Only thing that's happening is things are being uploaded. from more than one device. By the 3 o'clock hour, the family shenanigans begin at the trails. Cheyenne and friends arrive. She starts taking photos allegedly. Derek's calls start. Derek's at Wilson Bridge. Derek arrives. Daniel Pearson's seeing people. He's with someone, but that person sees no one. Rayleigh's little sister, Isabella, sees no one. Derek runs into allegedly flannel shirt guy. Derek's calling. He's calling. They're all calling. Everyone's freaking out. 3:49. Cheyenne's posting pics for some reason while everyone else is freaking out. 4 p.m. Everyone arrives. It gets worse. Kelsey German was at her boyfriend's house waiting for her. 4 p.m. shift at Dairy Queen. She didn't answer the first call from Becky while watching a movie with Chase's dad, but answered the second call, called her job and notified them of what was happening, told them she would be there in a couple of hours. She went to help the search. I told you, this is when the shenanigans began. Kelsey and Cody searched the Southside properties and private drive and yelled, called Libby's phone, knocked on doors south end of the bridge, did not go to Kay Weber's home, though. Searched her until around 5:30, then went to work. She left work a short time later after being called to the police station to answer questions, assist in locating the girls, and message Anthony Schatz. Mike Patty went to the Mears and asked permission to park there. He also asked permission to search their property. Arrived after 4:30, called another Ellie friend he knows when he got there to ask what to do. Ellie friend advised they could ping her phone and told him to call the sheriff's department to get the process started. At 3:07 p.m., Derek called Libby. There was no answer. At 3:11, he called again from Wilson Bridge. By 3:13, he had arrived and called several more times, receiving no answer. Around 3:30 p.m., he began walking, allegedly, towards the bridge and encountered who he believes to be Dan McCain. Why do we not know this at this point? Hasn't Dan McCain said whether or not he saw Derek and spoke with him? This witness told Derek that he did not see the girls, but did see a couple, Daniel Pearson and his lady friend. Derek then turned back around and returned to the parking lot to sit in the car and do nothing. Derek places his first call around 3:07. How much later was this? 3:11, he called to say he was coming down the road. 3:13, he was there. He waited and called several times, called me and asked Tara, and I tried to calling her. He was walking by 3:30. I can say when I got there, there were a few kids that I knew went to school with Libby, and they were under the bridge as well. Really? Well, we're going to explore that. We're going to explore that statement momentarily. Did Derek know the couple under the bridge? You mean Daniel Pearson and his female friend? At that time, after the gentleman told him only a man and woman was under the bridge and there was no one else, he decided to turn around and go the opposite way on the trails. Ellie was told about the couple, don't know if they have come forward. They have. It's Daniel Pearson and his friend. Derek never saw the couple. Last time the girls visited the bridge, it had been a while since they were there. It was winter, and the only reason they were there that day is because it was unseasonably warm, says Becky. All bullshit. Other family members arrived around 4 to 4:30. This is when the freak out starts, the shenanigans. And Libby and Abby were reported to the Delphi police as missing at 5:30. Police pinged Libby's cell phone unsuccessfully and later stated that the cell phone must have been turned off. It was believed, what? 3:45, Mike was called by Becky at work to notify the girls were not there. 3:30 to 4, Derek allegedly searched the trail away from the bridge, walking around. He walked the trail to the creek and then the trail leading Freedom Bridge. I don't believe it. 4 p.m., he returns to the parking area to wait for family. Just a moment, it's a delivery. Derek saw old man in flannel shirt leaving in dark four-door sedan. 4 o'clock, Cheyenne and her friend returns to parking area and leaves, at which time she posts photos she has taken to Snapchat. 4 p.m., so we have a pin in the timeline. Tara, Derek, Cheyenne. Cheyenne posted a picture with the timestamp of 3:49 to Snapchat on the south side of the bridge facing towards the north after she left the trails at 4. Cheyenne saw 2 people sitting in a car in the parking area. She thought it looked like a drug deal occurring. Tara said it was Derek and her waiting for family. Didn't speak or make eye contact with anyone and said it was odd to her they didn't ask about the missing girls. Wouldn't you think? 4 p.m. Derek and Tara sitting in the car acting shady as fuck, as if it's a drug deal. Cheyenne, after taking some shady as fuck photos, is leaving. Not only all of that, but family arrives. Cody, Kelsey, Becky, Mike, Tara, Amanda, and others arrive and start searching. Mike being on the later end of this group. Becky said she and Cody arrived together after driving the 2 routes the girls would have used if the girls decided to walk home. But no one thought to go right down the road to Anna's house. I mean, what kind of people are we dealing with? If they're not there at the bridge and on the trails, wouldn't you think they're probably right there at Anna's house? Allegedly, Cody had just arrived home. There's always a fucking backstory. As she was leaving to go to the trails, and they rode together, did they? Becky parked across the entrance after asking Mrs. or Mr. Mears' permission when seeing him upon arrival. Why is everyone asking Mears' permission? Now here's we got the weirdness. Okay, let's see what we're having to do. We're having to spiral around these points in the timeline because there's so much weirdness. There's so many anomalies. So we're going to backtrack a bit. Back to 12:39, phone 1 and phone 2 arriving. You know, the 2 phones that they want to exclude from the geofencing. Isn't this before this entire scenario starts? You'll see why it's odd in a moment. Derek calls Libby, 3:57. Derek calls Becky, 3:58. 4 o'clock, the girls, Cheyenne and Tara and Derek, they're all in a parking lot looking at each other in the car, but all being shady, not speaking. 4:12, Becky called Kelsey, who initially let the phone go to voicemail. Remember all the excuses as to why she missed the call. Becky called a second time. She noticed the missed call was from her grandmother, and she called Becky right back, so she ignores the phone twice. What is she doing? Why is she making all of these excuses for missing the phone calls like it matters that much? Why are we explaining away the missing of 2 phone calls at 4 o'clock? Do you wonder why people have suspicions of the family? Because it's all so suspicious. Hello, Occam's razor. Becky asked Kelsey if she had heard from Libby, and Kelsey said no, she hadn't. Becky tries to call Libby again and gets no response. Becky calls the girls' friends to see if they had heard from Abby and Libby. No one had. 4:19, approximately, Becky speaks with her daughter, Tara, and they decide to go to the trails to help look for the girls. Wait, wasn't Tara already there? "5:20, Mike Patter reports the girls missing. First officer arrives 5 minutes later. What? How is that possible? 5:49, phone 1 and 2 left. Well, let's take a look at some things. I walked all the way across the bridge and back. Didn't see the girls at all. I saw a guy when I first got there. Once I got on the bridge, I saw another couple. I only took the trail that led to the bridge. I didn't take the trail that leads to the right. She may have originally said 249 for the image, but the shadow analysis shows it was 3. Are you guys starting to understand what I mean by this particular slide here? Family shenanigans begin at the trails. There we go. Cody and Kelsey went across the bridge up to the private gravel drive and up to the houses on the south end. 4:30, Mike arrives. He calls a Ellie friend that knows when he got there to ask what to do. Or Ellie friend he knew. Ellie friend advised they could ping her phone and told him to call the sheriff's department to get the process started. Mike said he called Ellie during that time that he was walking the trails and searching for the girls. 4:30, tried to contact Anna, no answer. 5 o'clock, Becky calls AT&T and tried to track Libby's phone. 5:15, Becky says Mike came walking up. He had been searching. Family shenanigans. 5:20, Becky and Mike called Ellie to report the girls missing. 5:30, Becky left to go to Anna's house to find her. She wasn't home, but left a message with a family member. 5:30, Mike walked back towards town and encountered 2 officers. They had arrived almost immediately. They discussed if anyone had seen anything and said no, so they went to the station. Sorry about that. 5:45, Amber Alert was issued for a missing girl, Chastiano Reeves, in Gary, Indiana, believed to be in extreme danger. The immediate attention of ISP during critical times during the search for Abby and Libby. This missing teen was later found and thought to have killed her mother. Libby and Abby did not meet the criteria for an Amber Alert to be issued, allegedly. FBI agent was with ISP officer when the call came in and decided to assist in the search. Quick response by media and Ellie because of the friendship and media connections. What makes sense? Nothing makes sense. Remember, I said this is a theatrical production. This is an in real life, boots on the ground script. Media is being used as part of this script? Is it possible? Six o'clock, Becky and Anna were at the law enforcement station when Mike arrived. They gave the girls phone information so they could ping their phones. Mike left and went back to the house to gather up electronic devices and bring back to the station. Official search was underway involving volunteers and multiple law enforcement agencies. I contacted the Anthony Schatz account at the police station. The girls haven't answered their phones since around the time they went missing. Missing, abducted, we don't know for sure, said Mike Patty. The cell phone has been pinging around town. And there is a cell phone tower, but the ping was last noted around 5 to 6 hours ago, and they say the phone is now dead. Thank you, Gianna. 6:20. Now, remember, folks, before we continue, please remember at this point, $3:20 to $6:20. How many hours is that? $3 hours of daylight. 3 hours of daylight. During which time those girls were supposed to be dead and laying on Ron Logan's property, brutally slaughtered. 3 hours of daylight. How many people were out there during those 3 hours? Did no one take the trail to Ron Logan's down to that ravine? Did no one go onto Kay Weber's property and look across down into the creek and across? Because we know one thing. Had anyone done any of that during those 3 hours of broad daylight, they would have seen two bodies laying there on Ron Logan's. $6:20 sunset in Delphi. $6:30, Ron Logan returns home. A neighbor asks Ron for permission to search his property for the girls. He said he did not find out about it until after 6:30. He said people had stopped there and asked for permission to go back on his property to search for two girls. 7:01 scanner Delphi Fire requested at station for briefing on two missing girls. 7:05 scanner Delphi Fire second tone at station for briefing on the two missing girls. 8:01 scanner Camden Fire manpower requested at the station for detail. 8:22 scanner units called back to regroup. Repeat of Amber Alert sent out for missing girl in Gary, Indiana. 11:17 scanner units requested back to station. So you're seeing a picture? Is a picture being painted here? Is a picture being painted? From sunset, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose. All the volunteer firemen are involved, and the family hell is breaking loose. Until we reach midnight. At midnight, official search was suspended. Cold temperatures. Rough terrain. These poor grown men, firemen and policemen and bikers. All these bikers, all these volunteer firemen, these big, bearded, burly country boys think it's too cold and too dangerous to keep searching. Search dogs are requested. In the very early hours of the 14th of February, not long after the official search had been called off for the night, Sheriff Tobe Lesenby was notified that a cell tower had picked up a signal from one of the girls' cell phones from the area near the High Bridge about 2:30 a.m. Lesenby called for Darrell Sterrett, Delphi fire chief, to go back to the High Bridge and resume searching. They searched for a couple hours but didn't find the phone. Sterrett said, "I believe we were out till 1:30 in the morning, and I finally met up with the sheriff and the chief of police. My guys are volunteers. They have to go to work in the morning." In the very early hours, I got a call, I think at 2:30 a.m. from the sheriff, and they were wanting some lighting to go out and see if we could find a cell phone because the latest ping was coming back to the area of the Monon High Bridge. A few of us went to help for the search, to search for the cell phone, and we didn't find anything at that time. Something's not making sense here. Something's not making sense. Do you guys pick up on it yet? What's not making sense about this 2:30 ping? It's bullshit. We now know the phone did not ping at that point. We now know the phone was turned off at 5:30. It didn't ping again until 4:30 in the morning. But you're right, and we'll be covering that momentarily. There were screams at 2:30. Family, friends, and some LE continued to search throughout the night. 1:36 a.m. BOLO issued for 2 missing girls. 7:28 a.m. All Delphi fire units with the search party requested to report to station. They're calling them in at 7:28 a.m. (7:30) en route to the station. 7:41 sunrise. Search resumed, which included family, friends, numerous law enforcement, hundreds of citizens, search dogs, heat locating drones, and helicopters, and other various resources. So how? Hello? How? If sunrise is 7:41, you have hundreds of citizens. You have search dogs. You have heat locating drones. You have helicopters. You have winterization of the tree canopy. And no one sees the girls? For 5 hours? Missed them for 3 hours if they were there at Ron Logan's. So now we're to believe 7:41 sunrise with hundreds and all the other resources. And no one sees them until 12:17 p.m. We'll get there. The search resumes with teams of volunteers led by an official. Volunteers told to search areas away from the trails and bridge as to not interfere with search dog results. Wait a minute. Hundreds of volunteers told to stay away. Maybe it is making sense. The dogs did not arrive by the time the girls were found. Ah, I see. There was a 3-hour helicopter-based search directed east of the bridge, which did not result in finding the girls. John Weaver, allegedly, is on scanner stating that the girls' bodies were found in the creek before the official announcement. Law enforcement was asking for confirmation on the scanner audio, but the reply came back from the person who was seeming to control the narrative: negative. "9:04 a.m. Scanner Delphi Fire Command Deputy Coles needs a pickup truck removed from the cemetery." "10:56 Scanner Medic 3 ambulance request east side of Heartland staging in that area." 11:03 Scanner requested Medic 3 to be on standby in case something happens. Noon, 2 bodies. Libyan Abbey reported found deceased by searchers. BS, BS, BS. Found on Ron Logan's property, 50 feet from the creek and a half mile from last known whereabouts of the bridge location. Mike Patty searching in a canoe. Anna at fire station with her father, just arriving back from Michigan and speaking to Ellie. Becky and search party in town with wife of finding searcher. Searchers asked Kelsey what color shoes Libby was wearing, confirming the girl's identity. You remember that story? Another story that makes no sense. Pat Brown was actually finding searcher. Really? I don't know about that anymore. There were multiple search parties working close by each other. Once the searcher, Pat Brown, made the initial discovery, then the other nearby parties converged at the scene. Who touched the bodies? Pat Brown's wife was in the search party Becky was in and called her to inform her they had located the girls. David Erskine stated the following about what he saw. This summary is from the PM conversation he had with a stranger a couple of days after the murders of his niece and friend. He, his other sister, and her husband found the girls. They then called deputies Yoder and Genicola to the scene. Both girls were on the ground next to one another. They were not bound, but were touching each other. He stated, quote, "Whoever knew what they were doing with Abby and Libby, Abby was placed there like a doll. She was fully dressed in the same clothes she had on in the picture, with the hoodie up and hands folded. She was stabbed in the heart and artery in her neck." He stated Libby was targeted for sure, and it was personal with her. She was laying next to Abby. She was nude, and the top half of her body was covered with leaves and sticks, like they were trying to cover her, he says. He stated Libby fought like hell, and the only DNA would be from under her fingernails. Well, that's funny because Nicole Robertson says there's no signs of a struggle at the crime scene. So which is it, David? Is it she fought like hell, or is it there's no signs of a struggle? Nails were not removed. He stated Libby's head was an inch away from being taken off. That's somewhat of an exaggeration, but not too bad. It's bad. It's bad, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not seen the crime scene photos, it is horrible. He states that there were open caskets and Libby just had to wear a scarf. Both girls had necks covered. He stated he had read the coroner's report and it said everything was over by 3:30 and rape did not occur. 12:11, scanner from Delphi Fire. Command to call a cell phone from dispatch. 2:00, law enforcement announces the discovery of 2 bodies. Foul play was suspected by the way the bodies were found. Yes, go take a look at the crime scene photos. You'll see for yourself it's obviously fucking foul play. Identities were not confirmed at the time. However, it was widely assumed to be the 2 missing girls. Of course, they knew it was the girls. One of the relatives saw the girls. 2:43, scanner. Go ahead. Just make sure you stand by that item and we'll try to figure out how we're going to collect it up right now. Just stand by. Clear. 3:03, scanner. Go ahead. We have some underwear with an evidence bag. So just stand by there. They're on the way. They're coming through the water, by the way. Clear. At least 2 people with evidence so far. So you found more. What's the second thing you found? Because I'm only seeing one evidence bag. I have a cigarette butt in the water that's less than 2 or 3 days old. Okay, copy. 3:00, ISP in Carroll County hold a news conference confirming that 2 bodies were discovered. They say the case is being investigated as a double homicide. They say they don't believe there's any immediate danger to the community. Well, how so? 316. We need 3 more evidence bags if somebody could bring them. 4 p.m. Delphi Community School Superintendent Gregory Breles releases a statement saying that the bodies found were those of the 2 missing Delphi Community Middle School students, despite not being confirmed by law enforcement. Because it was known. It's obvious who they are. Scanner notification that Pat Brown would be arriving in the gray Chevy to retrieve his orange Chevy that is parked at the cemetery. Request to be moved earlier in the day. Pat Brown was in the search party that found the girls. His wife was in the search party with Becky. 10:31, scanner crime scene secured for the night. Asked for confirmation that units would secure the cemetery area. Dispatch confirmed. Here's some of the scanner audio here and there. Orange 2005 Chevrolet expires 3/7/2018. We have some underwear with an evidence bag, so just stand by there. They're on the way. They're coming through by the water by the way. Clear at least 2 people. Okay, all of that. We need 3 more evidence bags. You got it. Okay. Several vehicles. 8:45-ish. Just had a citizen stop by our area. Advised the girls have been found in the water. 8:45 a.m. Can you confirm that? We have no confirmation of that whatsoever. Be advised it was a John Weaver that told us that. Repeat, we have no confirmation of that whatsoever. 601, hold all of your traffic. I'm up at the scene now. 79 to 601. Are you requesting a crime scene unit? Affirmative. Requesting you go to 300 North. 22-minute mark, approximately 14:41 Delphi time. I'm at the crime scene. It's cordoned off. Are there supposed to be people up there, which would lead you to believe there's people there who don't belong there? I don't have any idea. I don't see the FBI personnel down here right now, so I don't know at this point. Just act like they're not in play and keep them at bay if you can. Affirmative. Note, we have Pat and Jill Brown would be arriving in a gray Chevy to retrieve an orange Chevy. Okay. Notify all units preparing to secure scene for evening. Asked if okay to open 300 North back up. Did not receive. Someone asked another unit if they were back at cemetery up front. They responded up front. Barry is at 575 and 300. Move to north side of roadway. Cover for the DNA. Yes, but my question, was it John Weaver or Josh Weaver? Did the officer hear wrong? Was it actually Josh Weaver and he thought he heard John Weaver? Who really knows? Where is John Weaver to confirm or deny this story? Where's Josh Weaver to confirm or deny this story? Can no one confirm or deny this story about the girls being found in the water? Look at this phone. This may or may not be an accurate map as to one of the two phones in the geofencing. Here's another phone. Why are these phones all over the crime scene? Look at 302. You have a phone literally at the crime scene. What are these phones doing? Specifically, the defense received certain geofencing evidence that at least 3 persons were in or around the crime scene at the time while the murders were allegedly taking place, according to the law enforcement fictional narrative scenario timeline. None of the owners of the phones have been any connection to Richard Allen, allegedly. The geofencing evidence would provide evidence of any of the following scenarios. Persons walking with the phones are witnesses to that would have observed the murders as they were taking place, and none of them identified Richard Allen. Persons were walking with phones. They were witnesses who observed nothing, as the murders did not take place the afternoon of February 13, 2023, but the victims were taken to the crime scene after the search was called off. C, the persons walking with the phones were participants in the murders. In the late discovery, the defense found a map prepared by someone that appears to track the movements of these people in and around the crime scene the afternoon of December 13, 2017. That should say February 13, 2017, including between 3:02 and 3:27 p.m. at or very near the location of where the bodies were ultimately found the following day. As it relates to the geofencing evidence, it would be shocking that law enforcement would take the time to put up a map together tracking the movements of certain phones in and around the crime scene somewhere between 12:39 p.m. and 5:49 p.m. on February 13, 2017, but not follow up with the detailed narrative report concerning the geofencing analysis of the data. On February 13th and 14th, 2017, law enforcement requested AT&T ping Liberty German's phone every 15 minutes. The time of the last ping to Liberty German's phone on February 13th was 5:44 p.m. And the time of the first ping on February 14th, 2017 was 4:33 a.m. Indiana State Police believe that Liberty German's cell phone was either out of the area of the Wells Street Tower or not in working condition between 5:44 p.m. on February 13th and 4:33 a.m. on February 14th, at which time there was a successful ping to the phone. So tell me, how in the hell did a 2:30 a.m. ping occur that would have triggered Lesenby to call Sterrett to come in with more lighting to search if at 2:30 a.m. there is no ping? How is it possible? It's not possible. It's not possible. So that means it was BS. What else from law enforcement has been BS? Um, there's more BS, so let's break some more down. Let's break some more stuff apart by people lying. Let's talk about liars. Emily Collier. I'm freaking out, kinda. I can't believe this happened. Madison Mata. Neither can I. And we were by there today. They were there when we were playing basketball at Cootie. Tara German. Who was there and where were they? Madison Mata. Liberty and Abby. They were at Highbridge. Lisa Frost. What time did you see him last? Madison Mata. City. Emily Collier. OMG. Madison Mata. Yeah, I'm saying. Bree Wilbur. I went to Highbridge about an hour before she got there, and I left before she was there. Tara German. Please, if you know anything at all, call the police department. Shooting Stars 1. Lol, funny. I'm sorry. I'm just in the middle of a chemo run and not feeling a whole lot technical right now. Don't be sorry. I understand. Let me reset here. Let me think what all I got brand spanking new and fresh. Herrera, Collier, and Mata all identify as either gay or bi. Herrera identifies as gay. All these girls were close with the S boys and the girls. So Herrera hearts a photo of Caleb on his FB, proves they all know each other. Those girls were at the trails that day. Claimed to have just missed the girls being dropped off as they left for Riley Park. They also changed their time. First saying 3:30, then changing it to 3. Wait up. First changing the time from 3:30 to 3. Now, where is that? Well, let's continue. Three classmates. Why would they change their time from 3:30 to 3? Let's get back. Let's get back to a particular statement. It goes like follows. Let's see. Okay, keep that in mind. 3:30, right? Let's pull this one up. Where is it? Becky says 3:11. He called me to say he was coming down the road. 3:13 he was there. He waited and called several times. Called me and asked Tara and I to try calling her. He was walking by 3:30. I can say when I got there, a few kids that I know went to school with Libby, and they were under the bridge as well. Well, hold on. Something's not making sense. So those kids, a few kids that I knew went to school with Libby were under the bridge as well when you arrived. But they say, first they say they left at 3:30, then they say they left at 3. Why would they lie? Why would classmates of two dead girls lie? I revisited Caleb's Facebook. Haven't looked at him in a while. He grew that beard after the murders. Very strange guy. Very strange. But knowing the people there more now, I'm a bit shocked he knows Herrera. She moved to Chicago after the murders. There was about 3 girls, and they were friends with Libby. They were at the trails that day. All 3 of these girls identify as either gay or bisexual. Has Julie Melvin talked about them? Have you heard of them? No, fill me in. Maybe you can explain this one to me. Emily Collier was one that identifies as bi, strange girl. Had just gone off her antidepressants at the time of the murders. She made a drawing and a song dedication to Libby on her Facebook after the murders. She got busted not long ago for meth. So why does her court documents list her as male? I've seen pictures of her when she was little and raised a girl. So I don't know what to think. She is listed as male in court documents. Anyway, her, Herrera, and a Mata girl. These girls are trouble. What is someone like Caleb doing knowing Herrera? She is the one who made an excuse for MS setting a chicken on fire. Yeah, that girl is friends with them. I have not heard from Twister yet. She might be busy. All of these girls are Hispanic, really tough girls. Emily had a boa snake she liked to show off in her photos. OMG, that's a cold-hearted asshole. Probably grew up watching too much Little Rascals with He-Man Woman Haters Club they had. Why would any man hate women? That's just weird. Those incels are usually not real handsome fellers. but they think they should be able to get models. They don't want the girl next door type. They're twisted in their thinking. And since they are never going to get a model, they hate all women. I don't think Caleb ever smiles in any of his photos on Facebook. I think some of those people are in some Facebook groups. Names look familiar. OMG. Rihanna Herrera hearted a photo of Caleb on his Facebook. I've had my eye on this girl and her two friends for a long time. They were at the trails that day. I would have never thought she'd know him, let alone heart him. So, what of it? What of it? I mean, sounds like it's all bullshit, doesn't it? That's what it would sound like if it was a fictional narrative scenario, a script being played out in real life, a LARPing. It's a fairy tale cover story while simultaneously being law enforcement's standard, family approved gaslighting narrative. How many people are involved in this? Because with all of this, you have a very simple consideration at this point in time. Is this a lone wolf scenario or is it not? Where does the line between witnesses and perpetrators belong? Can it even be established? Now, perhaps we should take a look at some witnesses and try to understand. I've shown this before. This is an alleged witness. It was that same kind of creepy shit out there on the South End. Horrifying animal bones, multiple types of animals, deer heads hanging in trees. This crime was practiced on animals and led to human life, and all the evidence is, or was there, I pointed out to the police at their search party, but none seemed concerned. We'll be getting to this at a future time, another time. Why does the linguist report list coordinates that are very strange, such as the Farm Bureau building, such as the High Bridge, such as the place near the Mears? I am not saying that she had a phone that day, but several contacts, including one in a well-known group who recently ran into the arms of Becky Patty, confirmed that she had a phone, likely against the knowledge of her mother. Speaking of Abby. And that it was in fact a member of the Patties that secretly got her this phone. Did she use this to communicate with someone before the murders? Was she there with her phone? Is that where the Abby Snapchat comes from? Where is it now? I think we already know the answer. Based upon Libby being made a hero by law enforcement for staying with her friend when she could have left, it appears to show that this person might have been catfishing Abby to get the girls to the trail system. Becky was recently asked by this group of hypocrites about a phone. Becky confirmed that yes, she had one, that she was not allowed to use it all the time. Becky likewise denied that she had gotten her this phone. Maybe Anna did know, but they've denied it for years. So who do we believe? How many witnesses do we have to this entire scenario that occurred over a 48-hour period? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 90? Is it 100? Is it 150? Carl Abbott? The classmates? Betsy Blair, Cheryl Loeffler, Daniel Pearson, Anna Spath, Bree Rayleigh Voorhees, Sarah Carbo, Cheyenne, Michelle, Wesley McWhorter, Terry Wilson, Eric Williams. Here we have another oddity. Another oddity here. Here you will see the initial charging documents for felony murder for Richard Allen. Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much. Notice here, in October of 2022, Kathy Allen, Sarah Carbo, Stephen Buckley, Jeremy Clinton, Josh Edwards, Brian Harshman, William Coffers, Wesley McWhorter, Melissa Oberg, AJ Smith, Anna Spath, Bree Wilbur, Rayleigh Voorhees, David Vito, Terry Wilson, Steve Mullen, Tony Liggett, Jerry Homan, Jay Harper, Dan Doolin, Matthew Clemens, Kelsey German, Betsy Blair. So why? Why initially charge Richard Allen with felony murder kidnapping? Implying that he was a part of a scheme to kidnap two girls in which they both ended up dead, whether or not by his own hands. Why initially charge him that way with this group of witnesses? But then things change. Because by January 18 of this year, he is charged with 2 counts of murder, David Vito, Rayleigh Voorhees, Bree Wilbur, Terry Wilson, Anna Spath, AJ Smith, Melissa Oberg, Stephen Mullen, Wesley McWhirter, Tony Liggett, William Crawford, Jerry Holman, Brian Harshman, Jay Harper, Kelsey German, Josh Edwards, Daniel Doolin, Jeremy Clinton, Matthew Clemens, Sarah Carbo, Stephen Buckley, Betsy Blair, Kathy Allen. Yet we eliminate geofencing. We eliminate prior bad acts of any of these witnesses. We eliminate the malignant, combative manner in which discovery was handed over as if it was confetti tossed into the air, totally scattered, disorganized, unlabeled. And then, in preparing for jurors, a questionnaire seeks to exclude those who have any knowledge whatsoever about any of these individuals. Nick McClellan, Brad Rossi, Andrew Baldwin, Richard Allen, Kathy Allen, Libby German, Abigail Williams, Kelsey German, Jerry Holman, Tony Liggett, Steve Mullen, Jay Harper, David Vito, Tobe Lesamy, Kagan Klein, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ron Abrams, Ron Logan. What do we want? What do we not want jurors to know? Good stuff as usual. The amount of misinformation that has been disseminated by law enforcement is staggering. The information they have given about the witnesses is a joke. And why would Nicholas McClellan want the geofence results thrown off? The prosecution leaked that 3 people shown in the results were Richard Allen, Shelby, and Cheyenne. But that was disinformation. So why would the prosecution want results showing only Richard Allen and 2 young gals thrown out? Because it was bullshit. Where's Daniel Pearson's phone? He claims he got a text from his mother at 3:19 while sitting on the bridge or near the bridge. That tells us that he had a cellular device with service. So why didn't it show up? The prosecution has already made his witness sighting disappear. I guess they want his entire existence that day to disappear as well. They really need to be careful about what they say under oath because there are those who know the truth watching. Random question. Will the state put the witnesses on the stand who first found the deceased? Anyone know who that was? I heard Ron Logan say Pat Brown asked to search his property around 6:30 p.m. the first night. Then I heard that Pat Brown was in the group that found them the next day and that he was Mike Patty's best friend and he had to have therapy after and that he moved far away after. Assume he is on the witness list. Anyone know? Witness list should have been complete and filed years ago. A searcher using a phone to search seen a deer that was close to the bodies. They were seen from across the creek, something like that. So to think it was trounced on by the search group is bullshit. It's been years since this was talked about. I assume they would call them to testify when they found them. Never understood why there were deer where literally hundreds of searchers were. It's in the woods. I don't believe the story. The deer in the woods story? If it's true, then those Indiana deer are far different than the Nevada deer. There's no way they'd hang around with hundreds of searchers. I've been following this case since the beginning. I've heard the meth theory, but never really thought of anything of it until recently. What if Derek German was a snitch? What if he snitched on Gabe Ellis or one of his friends? We all know that Gabe Ellis, Keegan Callis, Megan Allen, Tyler French were all up in the area the days leading up to the murders. What if they killed Libby to punish Derek for being an informant or snitch? Was BG Gabe Ellis? Was the second sketch Tyler French? Is that what threw everyone off? It is rumored that Ellis and French had a relationship with Ron Logan and used his property to cook meth in the past. Is it possible they used his property to silence a witness's daughter? I don't know. I never post on these sites, but I just wonder if anyone else thinks this could have happened. Thought this from the beginning. It's always been my theory. Always, some of the names are different, but everything else is the same. Arrests within this family go back decades. You cannot sugarcoat arrest after arrest. How long is Becky going to coddle Derek? She never addressed why he has never said a word in a paper statement, nor in a written statement, nor in a statement through his family about the love and cherished memories of his daughter, Liberty. Cody Patty was drinking at age 12. Both his mother and father were unable to care for him. And you know why that is? The adopted son, he's had an entire life of crime. Repeat offenders over and over and over without this deviation. At this point, and the point is, all three of her brothers are criminals, and so is Michaela Hartman. When she took Liberty to see Hannah Montana high on meth, crystal methamphetamine permeates the entire family. Not one, not two, not even three or four, not even 8 or 9 charges, dozens and dozens scope. These are not little mishaps. All of Derek's friends and his circle of friends are criminal felons. Tara went along with the thread of when Josh Link was bragging about how much money he had made selling dope, which he was still doing in 2016. Because he has to wear an echo monitor. Why did Amanda Duvall right here in this group insist that the picture of her child be taken down at the time that she was sitting next to date Jimmy Dale Duvall? We'll remember that. Nobody was watching Liberty's internet activities. If this turns out to be somebody that's not affiliated or knows this family in some way, it will blow me out of the water and several others here. Michaela Hartman is now in a relationship and pregnant with Dale Babcock's baby. He's a meth dealer. They're all connected to the Patties. The scope of felonies and drugs cannot be disputed whatsoever. They kept telling me somebody seen my motorcycle parked by the CPS building at like 3 something. It wasn't me, and I didn't see any other motorcycles when I left, says Aaron LaFont. Who else was there? Police questioned a lone female hiker that was there that day around the same time as the victims. She stated she did not see The bridge guy or Abby and Livy, but she saw another couple and a male lone hiker dressed in black. Was the guy in black ever located? Who's the guy in the back of Tobe Lesenby's car at Riley Park? I worked closely with a police officer while investigating another case. He said, quote, "We knew who it was. After the bodies were found, it was immediately obvious. We brought him to the catering tent and got him to drink some coffee. We swiped DNA off the mug and matched it to DNA found on the bodies." Sadly, at this point, the case was ruined. He was one of the discoverers of the bodies, and our evidence had been compromised. What does this mean? Who is Creepy Pear? Who was the officer that Creepy Pear spoke to? We swiped DNA off the mug and matched it to DNA found on the bodies? He was one of the discoveries of the bodies? Of course, it's just Reddit. It's probably nothing, right? Just Reddit. Probably nothing. Police messed up the investigation. The murderer was walking around with the search party looking for the girls. The police know this, but can't use it as evidence now. It would be tossed out because his DNA got mixed in when the bodies were found. So well done, police of Delphi. You have more deaths on your hands due to your incompetence. I've shown this again before. I saw somewhere posted they were found in a cabin, but we're not sure how true that is. Poor girls. One girl was found near a cave. Just wondering where you heard that. They were separated. I had not heard that. I sure wouldn't be bragging too much on social media about going to college and our little trips. He could be watching you on social media. How do you know that other family members aren't next? It's pretty frightening to think. Somebody ask Lisa Patty what the details are before she, she seems to have a lot of info. It's a serial killer. You'll never get away with blaming the family, you disgusting loser. Lisa Patty says, no, police have drones, dogs, ATVs out searching, trying to get a ping or find my phone on her. Becky Patty, so Ellie said that one of the girls says, is that creepy guy still following us? I guess it is a possibility they talked to someone. I'm sure Ellie has that answer since they have her phone. I'm also sure Ellie has a total timeline of what the girls did for days prior and have investigated thoroughly. Oh, you think so? I don't think so. I heard from several people at work who spoke to another woman at work whose sister lives in a house that's right by the trail's entrance. Apparently, the woman lives there, let her dog out. It was barking a lot, and she looked out and saw the girls passing by, followed by two boys with hoods up. Or was it two girls? She said the boys or girls looked around the girl's age. No mention of those boys from any news. Was it the classmates? I don't know. Me and my friend stayed out from 8 p.m. with the search party till the girls were found the next day. Around 2 a.m., we ended up calling the sheriff's office because we heard screams coming from the other side of the bridge. Is this why Tobe Lesenby called? Was it not a ping at 2:30 like he told Sterrett? Was it actually Taya Miller calling because of the horror screams? Were there horror screams at 2 a.m.? And Tobe Lesenby wanted those screams checked out, but didn't want anyone to know about it? Smells like it. Two a.m. is when the horror screams happened, and we called the police to come help look again, but they were all busy. He saw something he could not figure out what it was. There were two deer standing up there. As he looked up to see what it was, that is when he saw them, said Libby's grandma, Becky Patty. It was a volunteer searcher who discovered the bodies of the Delphi teens lying in the grass between a group of trees deep in the woods. No, no, because what is it? Is it one, two, three, four, five? How many discovered the girls? What are their names? This sounds like one. He called his wife, who was with us, and said, "We found them." My sister came up and she was crying and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," said Patty. Why is the story always bullshit about who found the girls? The guy that found the girls was by himself when he actually found them. Pat Brown found them after he saw some deers and he looked up and there they was. And he looked up and there they was. He called his wife and she was with Becky and told them that he found them. No, he was not alone. Hold on. You implied that he's alone. He saw something. He could not figure out what it was. There were two deer standing up there. As he looked up to see what it was, that is when he saw them. It was a volunteer searcher who discovered the bodies. He called his wife, who was with him, and says, "We found them." No, he was not alone. So Pat Brown was in the search party opposite side of the creek where the girls were, found and spotted the girls because he saw two deer. So technically he didn't stumble upon their bodies, so to speak, yet he's traumatized by what he saw and in counseling. He isn't the one I was talking about that saw the deer, says Becky Marchand Patty. He was in the search party that was on the same side of the creek as the girls. No, he did not actually stumble over them. So what's the real story? Because why are all the stories fucking convoluted about finding the bodies? Why are they not going to testify as to how and who and when and where with the finding of the bodies? Michelle Keene, Pat Brown, and David Erskine. She talks about the trauma counseling she has been getting since she came up on their bodies. Do you have a link or something where she's talking about the trauma counseling? I've not seen anything said by the searchers, and I would just like to see it for myself. Imagine that. Imagine that. Hopefully this doesn't come off as offensive. I just like to check facts. Oh, trust me, you'll be shamed as a family basher just for simply to verify something you're told. Thanks for that info. Perhaps it was then David Erskine who Ron Logan was referring to as his neighbor. What a nightmare for them all. I do wonder how IB's name somehow came up, must be PB's, in the search party picture by some posters. Michelle Keene, Pat Brown, and David Erskine. How many witnesses do we have to this scenario, ladies and gentlemen? This fictional narrative Phantomime scenario. If you know this guy, call the cops. They are wanting to talk to him. He had light brown gray mustache, thin face, short facial hair, high cheekbones, same clothes, dirty. Had a camel type hat about my height, so 5'8", maybe 5'9", maybe 160 pounds, I'd say. It was about 3 weekends ago. I parked at the gate, turned left to go to the bridge, and he got off the bench and asked me for $1. I said, "I'm broke, dude." He said, "Bullshit. You are." And I kind of walked behind us, and I stopped and said some words, and we stood toe to toe. I pushed him back, and he walked away. I was gone when we was done at bridge. It was around 1:30 p.m. February 30th. Hey, I've seen this motherfucker before out at the bench by the trail to go to High Bridge like 3 weeks ago. He asked me for money. He got an attitude when I told him no. So me and Buddy got pretty shitty with him and pushed him. He walked away. That may help police. Thanks for sharing. It was really weird because I grew up there all my life and I never had anyone or any kind of hobos ask for money or ever been bothered anywhere in or around Carroll County, especially out there. It's always so quiet. How many witnesses do we have to this fairy tale? This is the decision to hold a press conference in the Delphi Methodist Church, I think, is anything but coincidence. I'll refer to this guy as Pastor M. You know who he is if you followed the case. According to a Reddit user, Pastor M had taken his colleague's car out to within a mile of the bridge that day. And apparently, he heard of this incident on a police scanner and immediately went and took part in the search, quote unquote, for Abby and Libby. What's a youth pastor doing with the police scanner is anyone's guess. I followed this case for 4 years, and I don't think I've really taken too much interest in suspects. But my God, when you see this man, his mannerisms, height, weight, and his voice, even down to this youth pastor, this pastor delivers his sermon with his left hand in his pocket. Police said he walked the bridge, hands in pockets, so he must be comfortable with that very high wooden slab missing bridge to walk with hands in pockets. No, that's just his mannerisms, the way he walks. I've taken screenshot of M standing on stage, hand in pocket, delivering a sermon, and I wish YouTube would allow uploads of photos because you know what I mean? I could share it. If I'm looking at him and I'm absolutely convinced he is BG, the very same individual who I think Doug is staring over at. Youth Pastor M writes for his church. His writings and his blogs are full of talk about teen girls, how to treat them early on to modify their behavior because it's too late when they are grown women, and tells his readers what he plans to do to help them as a youth pastor, and proudly citing he has twice already served as volunteer schoolyard supervisor at the Delphi Junior High School, where he says he has had several interactions with several groups of young boys and girls. Seriously, check his writings. Incidentally, he denied taking his colleague's vehicle out there that day. His colleague being the actual church pastor known as Pastor Ben. Ben, what are the odds, Spirit Box? This individual on his Facebook has a pic taken of him standing on the Monon High Bridge. Doug recently said, "We have a witness that saw you. You are not as clever as you think you are. We are coming for you." There's another video that has a news lady ask Doug Carter where the girls were found. And he says, on the edge of the river, not 50 feet back and staged. This whole land scene I do not believe is real. Why? First, they do not collect the branches covering the girls. They do not say go back 3 weeks later and get them. Second, the bullet was not found the day they collected evidence. They cleared the scene and then days later went back and found the bullet. These are very big things to miss. There's only one person who has a motive to hurt Libby, and that is Ashley Garth. Libby's dad got meth from her, got busted, and then testified against her, making her lose her kid. I believe that Ashley and/or Garrett set this meeting up using Keegan Klein to get the girls to the bridge. If Richard Allen is involved, it's because Keegan Klein brought him in. Yes, Kelsey has said after she dropped the girls off, they cleaned out Chase's truck, but things didn't go exactly as planned. She said Chase worked half an hour before her and also said an hour before her. She said she watched movies with Chase's dad. She said she ignored her grandma's calls, and she said she didn't hear them. Now throw in she also had time in between to go eat with Bree and whoever else, and Bree says when they got back is when they found out about the girls. She should have just kept quiet. Her conflicting stories are muddying an investigation. I thought I read or heard that it was a woman, but could be totally wrong. Just what stuck in my mind when people refer to the agent helping out that night. Bingo, says Nancy. I have just inquired several times. I have inquired several times before and got nothing. Something else piqued my interest recently about this agent. Christina Dadson. She said she called Mike and he came to the trail from work after 4 p.m. They went to meet Anna at the DPD around 5:30 p.m. when she got off work. Yeah, I know what she said. Well, I've been watching. Mike Patty works at Caterpillar and still does work there. They have cameras all over the place. Yes, they all showed up, but they knew beforehand that the kids didn't show up to meet Derek German. What they weren't thinking was that they had been kidnapped or murdered. Surely. Well, the Patties must have. They all arrived before anyone else. There was a problem, obviously. When did everyone find out about it? Becky called Mike, of course. No text to back it up. She said she called Mike and he came to the trail from work after 4. From what I heard, they did tell Diane, Anna's mom, and she went look for the girls. Anna was at work and met the Patties at the PD after she got off of work. I heard that Diane's husband went out there on a 4-wheeler later that evening when he got done with classes he was taking. Well, all the family was there at some point. Fact. Robert Ives told Scene of the Crime podcast that he personally submitted several subpoenas to obtain all cell phone records from phones within a 5-mile radius. 5-mile radius of the trails to determine who was there that day. All owners of cell phones that pinged in the area of the bridge were contacted regarding their activities and asked about what they had seen. Investigators paid special attention to phone records of anyone who was new to the area or had spent several hours in the area during the time in question. My takeaway is that they have definitely questioned BG, unless BG didn't have his own phone that day. Anyone else within 5 miles of the bridge that day was contacted in case they had helpful information to share. Jeez. What is going on in Delphi? Just want to tell you all a few things that I know for a fact. I don't want to go into any horrible details. I have called the tip line and I have information most people don't have. There is family members on here, so I will only answer to them. The first, they know the person where I got my information. First of all, the man on the bridge is involved in this crime, but he is not the killer. There was more than one person involved. If they can catch this man, they will not have a DNA match. Also, Abby and Libby were not raped. Nobody needs to be looking for a sexual predator. Libby was the target, and it was drug related, but Abby and Libby were not on drugs. I promise you these facts are true, or I wouldn't be here telling you. I hope everyone enjoys their Sunday. Below is a link with the clipped audio from police scanners, Tippecanoe ISP, with the reference to a car that is registered to Brian and Benjamin Beeks of Monticello, Lafayette 1412 and 1028. Here are a few interesting takeaways. Called in around 10:30 p.m. on the 14th of February 2017. Unknown where officer is when he calls it in or why he would be running the plate. It would appear officer is not looking at the vehicle when he calls it in, as he first asks for 270 OJD, comes back as nothing, then tries 270 DJ, a red Pontiac. He says disregard. And finally, 270 DDJ. Dispatcher tells him it's a light blue '06 Toyota registered to Benjamin Beeks of Monticello. Officer seems like he got the info he needed. Was the officer relaying the plate based off a photograph that was hard to read, perhaps? Was he relaying the plate from memory? Following behind it and just has terrible vision? Perhaps he had written it down and thought he might have written it wrong. Lots of room for speculation, obviously, but in 3 days of scanner audio from 3 channels, this is maybe only one of 2 license plates called in, the other being Pat Brown's truck at the cemetery during the search on 214. I stumbled across this live feed after the girls were found, but not identified yet. It was a person saying they were there when the girls were attacked. I've shown this before, ladies and gentlemen. No one's paying attention. He said he didn't do anything to stop it because he was a kid too, and he was afraid the same thing would happen to him. He was not from Delphi. The killer had picked him up, and they drove at least an hour before arriving at a huge farm. He did not know where he was, but said he needed to get out of there because the bodies were found and the place was going to be crawling with cops. He said the person who did this would never be caught because no one would ever think he was capable, but he is. Said the guy would be hiding in plain sight. I have not been able to find the thread again. It's been deleted. I contacted the investigators and FBI early on and told them what I found. No one has ever contacted me or ever brought it up again. What do you think? Hoax? Maybe the kid ended up missing too. Anyone else heard anything like this? Where are all these witnesses? Is your timeline and theory of the case fatal to the prosecution's case against Richard Allen if the person Betsy Blair observed on the bridge is not Richard Allen? Is your timeline and theory of the case fatal to the prosecution's case against Richard Allen if the vehicle Betsy Blair observed at CPS building was not Richard Allen's vehicle? If Betsy Blair observed one person and Sarah Carbaugh observed an entirely different person, is the prosecution's timeline and theory of the case as it relates to Richard Allen fatally flawed? If neither Betsy Blair nor Sarah Carbaugh observed Richard Allen on February 13, 2017, is the state's timeline and theory of the case as it relates to Richard Allen fatally flawed? September 23rd, 2024. Watch how good it gets. It gets real good right here. October 14th, 2024. The composite sketches the state has prepared were intended as an investigative tool to generate leads to identify a suspect, and in fact, these sketches were not related to the identification of Richard Allen as a suspect. Therefore, the sketches would not be relevant. The witnesses who assisted in the preparation of composite sketches of the bridge guy would testify that they did not see the person depicted in their sketch for a sufficient length of time to allow them to positively identify Richard Allen. Therefore, under Indiana R. Evidence 401, the composite sketches are not relevant to evidence. The state's belief is that the defense intends to use composite sketches from the investigation as demonstrative evidence and for impeachment purposes, that the witnesses who participated in the preparation of composite sketches are not being called to provide in-court identification of the accused, Richard Allen. Furthermore, no composite sketch was instrumental in identifying Richard Allen. That's rich, isn't it? The state of Indiana requests the court grant the following. Order the defendant, his counsel, and witnesses to refrain from mentioning, commenting, or making any reference whatsoever, either directly or indirectly, to composite sketches without first obtaining permission of the court outside the presence and hearing of the jury. To further order said persons to make no reference to the fact that this motion has even been filed and or granted. Smelly, isn't it? Real stinky, isn't it? Those are your two best witnesses. I mean, I know all of you already know this, but just to prove it to our first-time viewers, there's a fictional timeline included in this document. Through the investigation, there were interviews done with 3 of the 4 girls that were on that trail on the trails that day. Well, hey, hold up. What about the other 3 who were classmates? You know, the ones who we read about earlier? Are we ignoring those witnesses? How many witnesses are we ignoring to this scenario? The 3 girls, identified as Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, and Anna Spath, encountered this male near the bench east of Freedom Bridge. One of the 3 girls, identified as Anna Spath, described the male as an older man walking on the trails as they were leaving, and she described him as kind of creepy. In a text from Anna to Kyla Brummett, remember, we took a look at her in the previous episode. Anna described the man as wearing like blue jeans and a like really light blue jacket. His hair was gray, maybe a little brown. He did not really show his face. Investigator Steve Mullen and Brent Ingram interviewed Anna, and she described the male as wearing a blue jacket and light blue faded jeans. The jacket was a canvas duck type jacket. Rayleigh Voorhees was also in the group of 4 girls, and she said hi to the man, but he just glared at them. She recalled him being in all black and had something covering his mouth. Rayleigh recalled telling her sister that someone was in a grumpy mood. She went on to describe him as not very tall and bigger build. She said he was not bigger than 5'10". She went on to say in an interview that he was wearing a black hoodie, black jeans, and black boots, all black. She said that he had his hands in his pockets. An interview was conducted in 2020 of Bree Wilbur. She was able to show investigators a picture she took on her phone of the Monon High Bridge with the timestamp of 12:43 p.m. Eastern. Bree showed investigators another picture she took on the bench just east of Freedom Bridge when they were leaving at 1:26 p.m. Eastern. Bree stated after she took the picture on the bench, they started walking back towards Freedom Bridge. But Bree stated that's where they walked past the man who matched the description of the individual in the picture. Detective Liggett then examined the timeline for the days of the homicides. As previously said above, Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, and Anna Spath were leaving the trails and passed by a male, matching the description of the male on the video taken by Liberty. Something's not making sense. We have Betsy Blair and Terry Wilson and Wesley McWhirter observing vehicles that are all three different, but that are turned into one. Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, Anna Spath, and Isabel Voorhees. Well, hold on. What about Herrera, Collier, and Madison, Emily Collier and Madison Mata? Just so odd. Just so odd. Where does it all end? This is supposed to be a timeline. But if this speculative scenario is indeed what happened, by this we mean our theory of what really happened, that's not this hypothetical fictional narrative scenario script. Why are the witness statements so inconsistent and odd? Speculation 1. A member of law enforcement is somehow involved, and said law enforcement officers have no intention of going down for a psycho meth head. Involvement could mean direct involvement in the meth operation, protection of the meth operation, or tolerance of the meth operation. As in, they knew what was going on but tolerated it because that was easier than investigating it. And anyway, if they busted those lowlifes, some other lowlifes would just move in to replace them. And those lowlifes might be less compliant than these local lowlifes. Or this LE involvement could be a sting or surveillance operation, potentially with the CI involved. How would this look if two girls were unalived under the watch of law enforcement, especially if policies and procedures were not followed? Or the CI didn't do anything to stop the crime? Law enforcement gives witnesses talking points. That implicate a lone wolf kind of psycho. Richard Allen tells them justice will be served by other means. Vigilante, old-fashioned, street justice, country justice, etc. Or that a broader investigation is required to snare all the perps. Or that there's a much larger multi-agency task force investigation in the works and that we can't tip off the criminals yet. Not all witnesses have the full picture. Probably just one or two know more than what they are told by LE. The witnesses stick to their story the best they can, but social media goes viral. They can't keep the story straight. The statements fall apart under scrutiny, but they were just doing what they were told was the right thing to do. But once you start lying, you can't stop lying. And now witnesses are accessories after the fact. What would lead someone to believe that when the accepted mainstream narrative doctrine, fictional narrative murder scenario, and the crime flow developed in real time on a live broadcast based on input from close associates of the victims, who are also the only witnesses to the activities of the girls for the 24 hours prior. It's all focused exclusively on the Monon High Bridge. Behind the scenes audio from the so-called lost documentary has a few locals stating the same thing. So when this person says they were out there for a few hours that night, where were they? Searching by the Monon High Bridge, or were they out by the Wilson Bridge? And they didn't live in Delphi, or did they? What were the circumstances that led them to be out there for a few hours that night? Did they drive in from Lafayette or Frankfurt or Peru? Were they out there already? Or they came out there to help with this community-wide search? Everyone in the area seems to know each other. One might wonder what their association was with Crayon, Ted Bear, Gabe Ellis, Garrett Kurtz, Jennifer Barnes-Dean, Anthony Schatz, and or Keegan Anthony Klein. In general, it feels like there are a few key questions about the organized trolling that aren't being asked yet. For instance, people who stated they came in from out of town to be in the area the evening of the 13th when the staging occurred. Or some of the most active and strident, mean, gaslighting advocates for the fairy tale cover story Delphi Murders fictional narrative scenario. And the lone wolf psycho killer Richard Allen's guilty theory. Why is that? And why does this discussion of organized trolling focus on one of the dozens of leaks or the fake obituary but avoid this fact? Associates of the John Weaver heard on the police scanner audio, the John Weaver who allegedly stated the bodies were found in the water, are active in chat every day, but they never mention this fact or offer clarity as to what was meant by that statement. Why is that? Can we get John Weaver up on a panel? Perhaps with the person who stated the bodies were found in a shack? So we can sort out this misunderstanding? A former video production assistant turned grift merchant who seems to suffer from histrionic personality disorder can't decide if he or she was at the trails on 213, admits fabricating evidence and promoting false narratives for years, has shared at least half a dozen mutually exclusive alibis, and has produced very detailed video reenactments that might as well be the prosecution's opening statement for the Delphi Murders fictional narrative scenario fairy tale proofs family law enforcement narrative. But Snee chooses to spend 30 minutes talking about a Muppet video. No one seems to be talking about Redacted's role in all of this, which is surprising since he was one of the main instigators of the troll mobs, and he has stated openly that he has non-public information about the case, that is, discovery. Why is that? Persons with direct association to the victims in this case were running various extortion, synthetic identity deception, catfishing, solicitation, meth production, meth distribution, trafficking, related criminal schemes, but the troll channels, several run by persons with meth-related convictions themselves, pretend like they have knowledge that these are definitely unrelated to the events of February 13. How could anyone be so sure about that? The secret Discord, which includes the main creators, both pro-prosecution and pro-constitution, run by someone LARPing as a sniper, is another topic that no one wants to discuss, apparently. Nor is the associate of Redacted, who was photographed sitting on the lap of the former police chief and later murked and burned beyond recognition by a Henry Doe who drove in from Wisconsin and was later suicided. John McCurdy, Anna Downham. Yes, them. Is it too soon to start asking or answering these questions? Because these are the real topics that should be discussed. And now would be a good time to answer these. Obstruction of justice. A person who knowingly or intentionally induces by threat, coercion, false statement, or offer of goods, services, or anything of value a witness or informant in an official proceeding or investigation to A, withhold or unreasonably delay in producing any testimony, information, document, or thing. B, avoid legal process summoning to the person to testify or supply evidence. Or C, absent the person from a proceeding or investigation to which the person has been legally summoned. 2, knowingly or intentionally or in an official criminal proceeding or investigation, A, withhold or unreasonably delays in producing any testimony, information, document, or thing after a court orders a person to produce testimony, information, document, or a thing. B, avoids legal processes summoning the person to testify or supply evidence. Or C, absence the person from a proceeding or investigation to which the person has been legally summoned. 3, alters, damages, or removes any record, document, or thing with intent to prevent it from being produced or used as evidence in any official proceeding or investigation. Does that include law enforcement and the ISP? 4, makes, presents, or uses a false record, document, or thing with the intent that that record, document, or thing, material to the point in question, appears in evidence in an official proceeding or investigation to mislead a public servant. So interesting, isn't it? What has gone on in the Delphi murders, fictional narrative control scenario in the past 7.5 years? Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Is it reasonable to believe that this story has been all a lie? Is it reasonable to believe something else happened? Let's hear some comments from our community. You see, what you're looking at right now is the area that I believed all of this transpired. Like everything else, there's two bridges. There's two of everything. There's always an alternative explanation. And oddly enough, here at Wilson Bridge would have been a perfect spot to be away from all that was going on at the High Bridge on February 13, 2017, and the early morning hours of February 14. If a group of teenagers were witness to a crime, possibly even involved in a crime, or became accessories after the fact by covering up a crime, or at a minimum, obstructing justice to protect their friends. But it was unclear exactly who did what or with whom the responsibility lies, and none of the group is talking, and the small rural community is traumatized. Is it possible that the parents of these teenagers may seek to hide the details of their teenagers' whereabouts to obscure their involvement? To protect them from being scapegoated in the media or railroaded by law enforcement? To what extent would parents protect their teenage children, even if it meant justice had to be sacrificed? To what extent would law enforcement protect the teenage children of a community if they were presented with a situation where many of them would face some variety of life-altering legal consequences? Speculating here. Something happens at a pig roast in the woods. Or even at someone's house. Perhaps meth psychosis. Perhaps one was hurt badly, but because of dope or other illegal activity, they felt like they couldn't take them to the hospital. Is that what happened to Abby? People panic and hide the bodies. In what could have been a perfect place to hide the bodies? They make up and then enact the fairy tale cover story, fictional narrative scenario, the Phantomime. A few posts are made on social media by some friends who are asked for a favor and told they are doing the right thing. Kyle Smith, Erica Gibson, etc. They then stage the bodies that evening where they know they will later be found. Then 7 years of theater and myth making. This fairy tale cover story, fictional narrative scenario now becomes the only story. It becomes the story. It's repeated endlessly on mainstream media and YouTube channels. It becomes one and the same as the truth of the crime. It enters the courtroom as a factual legal scenario. Despite little to no evidence at all to confirm it. Only the few people who were there and directly involved know what happened, and they don't talk. People who were asked to help with this cover story might at some point realize that they are being used. But it is too late because they are now accomplices after the fact. Any lawyer would tell them to say nothing, and others may figure this out on their own and become ghosts. Parents in the community may suspect something is wrong, but not know exactly what happened, and their kids won't tell them. She wouldn't talk to us about that day for 6 months. Some would dramatically change. Some would leave the area to never return, never speak of it again. So out of an abundance of caution and the fear of their kids getting entangled in an accomplice after the fact scenario and being charged with felony murder, they say nothing and go into deflection mode. The fact that things aren't quite right is kind of an open secret in this community. But no one wants to make accusations unless they know for certain what happened, and no one knows for certain. But would parents like this actually cover for their kids if they suspected they were involved in a very serious crime? Parents cover for their kids all the time. Alex Murdaugh covering for his son's underage drinking and boating incident in South Carolina, for example. He didn't need to place blame on any one person, just muddy the waters enough and intimidate law enforcement enough that they were afraid to press charges. James Renner's book, Little Crazy Children, has another example of parents and teenagers colluding to protect a friend and point blame at an outcast who was convicted and then released from prison years later when new evidence emerged. In my opinion, only most of those teenagers and parents, most of those teenagers and parents thought that they were doing the right thing at one point. And then they got to the point where they had to keep doubling down on their theories despite any doubts. You can tell one lie, you have to tell three more, and then three more. And after doing this for years and years, you can't go back and say you lied. Obstruction of justice is a crime with serious consequences, and your life would be ruined if you admitted your years of lies prevented justice and sent an innocent person to jail. At some point in this situation, people might start to believe the lies themselves and run through some psychological ego preservation phenomena, convincing themselves of their own innocence, perhaps self-justifying as a victim who is in an impossible situation and did what they thought was right at the time. But what about law enforcement? Many law enforcement officers are old school. They get befuddled by social media and don't have the experiences or resources to fully investigate a murder, let alone two murders. They haven't investigated a lot of murders, and definitely nothing complex as this with multiple people and devices and online accounts involved. They suspect this will get wrapped up quickly, and so they take some things for granted and don't check every alibi and cut a few corners here and there when it comes to paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork with multiple agencies involved. These law enforcement officers are not used to working together. They may not be comfortable with using the FBI's Orion system, perhaps keeping their notes in a notebook of their own systems, which makes cross-referencing difficult. They're under a lot of pressure and moving quickly. More corners get cut, and then only 20,000 people are in their entire county. They're confident this will get wrapped up quickly, and then they can go back to normal again. So they don't know or take the time to validate the digital data. They don't even keep or take digital data. At some point, some of them realize that things aren't right. Some well-meaning law enforcement officers realize that many youths in the area were there and may be involved, perhaps even some of their relations. And they can sense the bloodlust that's growing around the case. They are incredulous that those good kids could be responsible for these murders, and also don't want to accuse young people and ruin the reputation of the entire community forever, so steps are taken to prevent them. The DVR is set to write over recorded interviews. 4 or 5 hard drives of recorded interviews are accidentally discarded and then run over by a bulldozer, burned and buried in cement. Some of the FBI ask too many awkward questions, and they are asked to leave the Joint Task Force. At some point, deflection mode kicks in. Because some other law enforcement officers realize something is sus with both the case and the investigation. The thin blue line requires they muddy the waters and deflect blame away from their colleagues who either A, screwed up the investigation so badly, or B, obstructed justice and destroyed evidence. They tell themselves it must be option A because no one wants to consider that their friends and colleagues would do option B. Now, lots of law enforcement officers are in full-on deflection mode as they seek to solve the crime despite their unspoken realization that either A or B has taken place. But without proof, it's easier to just keep up the charade than to raise the real issues. because their leadership seems to have doubled down on the lone wolf psychotic killer theory. At some point, political figures begin to realize something is very wrong. But admitting this happened on their watch is political self-deletion, especially if they voice support for law enforcement and or certain parties at some point. Politicians go into distancing mode and refuse to get involved, insisting that this is a law enforcement issue. Turn a blind eye to things that don't make sense, refuse to even look at anything about the case. They don't want to know. At a certain level, politicians have the mentality that, quote, I'll be gone and you'll be gone before these problems need to be solved. So they kick the can down the road just past the next election. At some point, the problem becomes too big to fail. There's the potential for legal action, civil lawsuits, potential criminal liability, etc., if certain things can be proven. Depositions will take place, evidence will be collected. These things are messy and expensive. As an example, the entire budget for Carroll County was less than $20 million last year. Steve Avery's lawsuit against Manitowoc County was for $30 million, and that was before his attorney started talking about including Wisconsin's crime lab and personal liability for law enforcement into the lawsuit. At that point, there's no going back. The only way forward is hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. The three monkeys. And that, ladies and gentlemen, appears to be the anti-fictional narrative scenario around the Delphi murders. The ghost busting of the Phantomime, if you will. I like to close with a quotation from an amazing, interesting email I got from a longtime viewer. I'm starting to wonder if the girls were ever on that damn bridge at all. Let me put it up on the screen for you guys. The bridge crossing seems to be a made-up way to distract attention and pretend that the crime occurred somewhere else. Somewhere other than right there across the road from where they were actually dropped off. I'm really starting to wonder if the bridge guy video was all staged by the killers and even placed on the phone later. Given the still photo Snapchat photoshopping claims, this would be a logical next step. If the Snapchat was so obviously photoshopped or faked, then how the hell can we trust the supposed video of Bridge Guy? I bet the evidence, actual murder video given to the defense by the prosecution, if they have them at all, was heavily edited to exclude the real killers in action. If there really was a complete murder video, as this guy suggests, of the actual murders, and if that video was obtained by the prosecution, there is absolutely no way in hell that that raw video was ever properly handed over to the defense unedited. But was it sold on the dark web? And is it still? I tend to think the defense has deduced some obvious and significant exculpatory facts from the flawed, mutilated discovery. that the dipshit cops and prosecution completely overlooked and still has no idea about. More and more, I am hopeful that if Alan is truly innocent, that his lawyer's filings to date are largely a strategic distraction from the real and already admissible evidence already in their hands that the prosecution has failed to interpret properly. Think about it. If the defense had planned all along, for example, to drag the Mears property extended family into this, they have maybe done pretty well because Gull has not excluded those potential bad actors yet. So I'll ask you all, ladies and gentlemen, to put your hands together and to pray for truth and transparency in the Delphi murders case against Richard Allen, for a solution to an extremely difficult murder situation. Now, I'll ask you all to please hit the like. Please say goodnight in the chat. If you're on the replay, please do me the honor of leaving a comment down below in the comment section. The comment section is the most cherished thing to me, so that in the days and weeks ahead, we can continue to discuss. It's my hope that this production will be of value to you, and that it will bring peace and understanding and calmness to the scenario and to your life, and add something to your life. So thank you very much. Please support the channel in all of our various support pathways that are available to you, including the Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, the merchandising, and all the things, the super chats, the super thanks, and also just by basic participation in the channel. It really adds so much. And I just want to thank you immensely again. Now, I have to go on and join Silky. I am late for her show. It took a little longer than I thought to get through this. I'm an hour late. So I'm going to go over and jump over to Silky's stream. But I'm going to close this out by playing a video for you as we get out of here. And I hope to see you momentarily on Silky's stream as soon as this stream ends. But God bless you all and good night. And let me just say goodbye to everyone in the chat before we get out of here, including Susie, Heather, Iva Pappas, David Rogers, Andre, Lisa, Dan Jones, Heavy Metal Rehab, Tammy Martin, Maria, Yaya Kelly, Housebroken, Ashley, Sunflower Soul, Mara R, Tara, Rebecca Ann, Sunflower Soul, Housebroken, Gina, Lisa, Criminal Network, Adrian, Fur Baby Daddy, Nobody Nothing, Sandy D, and Gaslight You, and anyone else who's watched the show. I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry that tonight I did not discuss much with the chat, but it was a very long jaunt through all of this information. So thank you very much. Also, Deborah, David Rogers, and who else contributed? Tara, Gianna, and Amy. Thank you for your contributions. I appreciate the super chat, super stickers, and memberships and all that. Thank you very much. And hey, it's awesome. Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Yeah. Foxy Lady, Tammy Martin, all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you guys later. I'll leave you with a little entertainment. Hopefully it comes up here. I have another bookend of Wilson Bridge, so I'd like you to see this. This is something that's dear to my heart. So God bless you again.
Here it is. Here it is. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're hoping that we can keep the spirit box. You're from.
Careful what you wish for. That's what it says.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe be careful of it. So always leave.
Huh.
I don't want you to break your leg.
Unfortunately, we might not be able to hear
That sound.
the sound because of all the background noise, but Joe, you can be telling us.
Yeah.
All right, that works. So here's a tree that good old Prof had to cross like a few days ago.
This tree here.
Yeah, he said there's a tree that you got to jump over and then you just work your way to the field. So let's be kind of careful here. Yep, and now we're in good shape. So we were just there. And I guess we could have come this way, but oh well. Here it is. So here you can see, if you really wanted, you could drive all the way here from that open field that we just passed.
Are we gonna walk this?
Uh-huh.
You have time?
Yeah.
It was like 2:30 when I checked my clock.
2:30? Oh, well, or it is. Well, let's just do it quickly.
Huh?
Saying anything?
May I touch you? And it says Lucille and one lady here. I don't know if they're talking about Abby or Libby.
Uh-huh.
Here. And asked if she could touch me. So
Huh.
I asked her to hold my hand. So hold my hand and we'll see if I can do anything on my hand.
Okay. So basically it's right there, that field. So
Why are we going this
the,
way?
just to see what, mhm. We would probably be about a mile. Yeah, we want, that's where we're going next. But I mean, just to here, and then we're turning back. I guess the point of it all is that here's this open field and it's completely secluded. Somebody through here from the wheel. Yeah, if some people were parked right where you and I are parked, they could have accessed this open field. Yeah, but they could have drove a vehicle up to that point and then carried things to another vehicle. Or they could also use four-wheelers. People have four-wheelers here, you know. So I don't know. I mean, it's just something I was asked to if we could do this as a favor for someone. And here's the open field that it's completely secluded. I mean, but in any case, in any point, dude, I mean, there's houses all around here. Oh, and there's the lane right there. You see, that's the lane that we just passed that goes up to the road. So that's the purpose of this short session. And so I'll be checking out, and let's do our next stop. Go to the site, absolutely, and then we'll go back on live there. Okay, so I'm out to here. I'm checking out. I hope that whoever requested that I did this for them was watching and it was helpful. There is Joe, there is the spirit box does record the transcript, right? Oh, that's a shooting target. So somebody's been shooting around here, huh?
This looks like it's been here for a while because you can see all the bullet holes. Probably like
Yeah, right there. There's one.
Like a 410.
A 410.
Or a shot, buckshot, because they're little tiny little holes. And you can see all the little holes here. So somebody was practicing with their, probably like a 410, small gauge, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Pro shot products.
Interesting.
Afraid.
Who's afraid?
It looks like they shot the crap out of it. Against this tree. Look at these marks. Do you think this is it's a ricochet from a bullet?
It doesn't look like a bullet hole.
No, there's no well,
Oh, maybe there.
what about there? I don't know if
It
there.
just looks like the main place that they shoot.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Or a nail hole or a bullet hole. I don't know. Could have been like
That's a
little
bullet
410
hole.
slug or something.
Yeah, it's a 410. Another one up here. That's a different caliber. You see the bigger hole up there?